Hey everyone. So this is one of our last lessons for writing a persuasive or argumentative essay. Um, Now we're going to do the third body paragraph of persuasive essay or argumentative essay. And the objective of the third paragraph is that it's actually the counter argument to your position. So what that means is that one of your paragraphs is like the opposite of you. Now, you're probably wondering, well, why do I do that? Why do we do that? Why do we add the opposing argument? Don't I want to convince my reader? So should I just leave that out so that they don't have to think about that? Uh, that you might. It sounds like that's the right way to go, but it's not. You always want to include the other side. You're just going to give them one paragraph. You're not going to write out their whole like all this evidence for them. It's just one paragraph that describes why they're against your side. So what's that show? What's that prove to the reader? It shows that you looked at the other side, like, hey, I did read about it. I looked at them. I looked at their ideas, and then ultimately, when you thought about both sides, you decided on yours. Okay, so it shows the reader that you did consider the other side. You just didn't, blindly make your decision without reading it or reading about it. So that makes your argument stronger. It actually makes it stronger to have looked at the other side, at least considered it, and then made your decision. It makes you look unbiased. Uh, Bias is when you favor one side over the other. Um, I could be someone who's completely against Hawaiian pizza. I hate Hawaiian pizza. But what if I told you that I've never tasted it? Then you're kind of like, well, how do you know you hate it if you've never tasted it? At least try it and then decide. That's what it means. So it's like, okay, I tried Hawaiian pizza and actually, it was okay, but it's still not my favorite. But I don't hate it anymore. And so, I can still say, I think Hawaiian pizza shouldn't be pizza. I've tasted it. It's all right. People do like it, but you know what? We shouldn't make it. But if you've never like read about it or tried it, then it makes you look like you're biased. And people don't listen to people who are biased. All right. So now what's the counter argument look like? It looks a lot like just a regular body paragraph that you've been writing. So you have your yellow topic sentence. You just introduce the topic. There's a certain way we're going to introduce it. And then what the opposition says is red. So that's like where you did your evidence. You're just going to talk about what was said. You're not gonna do any quotes. You've read through. This is what they said. You're just describing what they said. Don't need to cite anything. You don't need to say like what text you got it from. It's just, hey, this is what they're saying. And then you're doing a concluding sentence for them. So it's like, what's kind of their final thoughts? So let's take a look at my example. Here's a counter argument. So remember, we've written our first two body paragraphs, and then here's the counter argument paragraph. So again, I want you to use the words that I'm using here, like another reason, opponents. Opponents are people that are opposite of you, they're against you. So opponents argue that flying cards will increase noise and be dangerous. So I gave kind of the two main reasons that they wrote about. Um, and then I just described it a little bit. What do they mean by that? They argue that flying cars will generate more noise than regular cars. Furthermore, they state that flying cars will be even more dangerous than regular cars because of the speeds involved. Okay. Again, I'm not explaining every single detail. I'm just stating what they think they're going to be the problems. Now, in the green, they argue that money should be invested in expanding current roads and freeways to reduce traffic congestion. So I gave them that's like just one concluding sentence about what they think should happen instead. Um, so that's the counter argument. It's not like I said, you're not citing text. You're just describing what you've read about them, and then you're putting it in there, just to show that, hey, to the reader, look, I did look at it and I considered it, but this is where I made my decision. I decided to support flying cars. So you're going to write that down here. Remember that your paragraph starts here with an indentation. After you write it, always do a spelling and grammar check. Okay, every time spelling and grammar check, because I dock points for that. So make sure you get that in there. Okay, so again, if you have any questions, always ask.